I feel like I'm picking fights that I don't mean to pick fights on. I just stuff's been on my mind. And, now that the news cycle has slowed down, I can get to some stuff that I otherwise wouldn't have gotten to. And this is kind of relevant to stuff that I need to talk about. Um, Sam Bankman Fried has been arrested in the Bahamas. He was arrested after prosecutors in the U.S. filed criminal charges. This is from the New York Times. They call it a stunning development. It's not stunning. It would have been stunning if he wasn't. The arrest was the latest stunning development in one of the most dramatic falls from grace in recent corporate history. Mr. Bankman Fried, 30, was scheduled to testify in Congress on Tuesday about the collapse of FTX, which was one of the most powerful firms in the emerging crypto industry until it imploded virtually overnight last month after a run on deposits exposed an $8 billion hole in the accounts. Prosecutors for the Southern District of New York confirmed that Mr. Bankman Fried had been charged and said an indictment would be unsealed on Tuesday. Separately, the Securities and Exchange Commission said in a statement it had authorized charges related to Mr. Bankman Fried's violations of our securities laws. The criminal charges include wire fraud conspiracy, securities fraud conspiracy, and money laundering. He was the only person charged thus far, taken into custody. It turns out that some of the people who worked with him had a Slack channel that is an online portal where they can kind of do direct messages, and they called it wire fraud. Separately, Sam Britton is no longer a Department of Energy employee. He is out. Sam Britton is the transgender or non-binary, whatever you want to call it. He's the sociopath who worked for the Biden administration, who's facing charges for stealing luggage at separate airports. By law, the Department of Energy cannot comment further on personnel matters. Sam Britton is no longer a DOE employee. That's all it said. Now, Britton also appears to have fabricated part of his origin story. He says he was in torture therapy as a young child for years, but he can't remember the therapist's name. It appears now even his parents have said it's not really true, and that there were no known conversion therapy places, as he described it, in Florida at the time. But that story kind of made him a cause celeb. He's the weird dude with bald head who dresses in women's clothes and believes that to have sex you should dress up as a dog or some such. Deeply demented individual who clearly had deep issues and yet was mainstreamed. I do find it a little bit ironic that so many of the people who rush to advance the transgender agenda put forward these people who are clearly nut jobs. And it discredits the whole affair. You don't even have to do it for them. They do it for themselves. But I bring up those two stories that are independent of each other to talk about something else that kind of bothers me. The number of people I know who were very adamant, insistent, well, of course Sam Britton's not going to be charged with theft of luggage. He works for the Biden administration. He can get away with whatever he wants. And of course, Sam Bankman Fried is not going to be charged because he was a big Democratic donor. They're going to give him a pass. If he's charged, it'll be a slap on the wrist. He'll do no jail time. Part of this is notable because there is a deep skepticism of this Democratic administration. There is a report out that the head of the Civil Rights Department of the Justice Department has openly admitted she intended to target and arrest pro-life activists as payback for Roe v. Wade. You can understand the political motivations. And I do think that even people like me who are a little frustrated with the conspiracy talk, you got to recognize it's kind of earned. Now, I know people on the left don't want to admit that, but the Biden Justice Department is clearly politicized. There is a legitimate law on the books that prohibits protesting in front of the homes of federal judges, and yet Merrick Garland won't enforce that law. you can kind of see the politicization of the Justice Department. But I don't think it's healthy for a lot of pundits and commentators on podcasts and talk radio shows and the like to just be matter of fact that, well, of course nothing's going to happen to this guy because he's a Democrat. Guess what? He's being charged. He lost his job at the Department of Energy. Sam Brinton is. To come out and just say these things matter-of-factly up front destroys your own credibility. On top of that, it allows people to get the conspiracy wheels going even further. I know someone who heard the story about Sam Brinton, and the podcaster said, well, I mean, he's not going to be charged because he works for the Biden administration. They took it as fact and were furious. And they asked me about it. I said, no, that's not true. He may not be charged, except the charges are at the state level. And the charges were in Las Vegas, and where else? Was it Minneapolis? That they weren't federal charges. The federal government can't interfere with that. Just do some thinking. And the same with Sam Bankman-Fried. And of course, there are a lot of people out there saying, well, he's going to be Epstein. Epstein didn't hang himself either. Like, the dude's still alive. I don't know the circumstances, but I mean, why are we jumping to, oh, he's not going to be charged? Oh, he's charged. Well, they're going to kill him. Why? Why are people doing this all of a sudden? It's this phenomenon, I guess, of the internet and people talking back and forth to each other and people embracing this. And I go back to this Stephen Wolfe book I mentioned, The Case for Christian Nationalism. It really, really feels like to me that this book feels to me, and I say feel because it's an emotional reaction to this sort of stuff. It's not a very thoughtful book anyway. But it just feels like one of those things where a group of guys were sitting around having a few drinks. They start blustering about the state of the country and the fallen world. And we should advocate for Christian nationalism. We should have the Christians take over, purge the heretics, and we can clean up the nation. And they're all they're kind of tipsy. They got a few cigars and some bourbon in them, and they're all laughing about it. And the one guy's like, yes, we should. I, in fact, will write a 488-page thesis on it and publish it as a book. And the other guy's, whoa. We weren't really serious. We were drunk. The problem is there's always Crazy Town that embraces this sort of stuff. I just, the whole conspiracy thinking on this stuff, I don't find it helpful. I will say, yes, I do think it's true. We're living in a day and age where a lot of things that people said weren't true with COVID came to be true. It is also true, I think, that there is some level of dismissiveness that, the virus did evolve over time. And so things that weren't true in the beginning, the virus evolved, and things that weren't true became true, not because they were always true, but because the virus evolved. But there are some things that were true the whole time, too. I do think that a lot of people in the public health community have been a little bit too dismissive of myocarditis and problems and reactions to the vaccines. I also do think it's a little bit nutty that all of a sudden anyone who falls over dead is, must have the COVID vaccine. You know, the number one cause of death of people in their 19 to 45 in 2019 before COVID? Cardiac event. People just want to extrapolate, and the BS artists of social media make a lot of money out of it. My problem here is this. I am more and more encountering people who they listen to the podcaster, the talk radio show host, the TV pundit say things, and they just say, well, because they have a platform, they are there, they must be credible, they must be true. So when they say that Sam Brinton will not be charged because he works for the Biden administration, or Sam Bankman-Fried will not be charged with anything because he is a big Democratic donor, other people believe it's true. And part of that is we have outsourced our thinking to other people. I very often feel like I think, it's not even a feeling, it's a think. I very often think part of my job in here is to deprogram people from the crazy things that even people on my side say. And sometimes they get it right and I get it wrong. And I try to tell you when I got it wrong and they got it right. But oftentimes they're just kind of throwing stuff out there. And they're being flippant, and you don't understand that they're being flippant. And that, I have a concern about that because it allows people to go down rabbit holes in their thinking instead of seeing the world clearly. And if you can't see the world clearly, you can't fix the problems in the world. When you really believe that, well, the gig is up, this guy isn't going to be charged because he's a Democrat, well, at some point you just give up fighting because, well, the system is stacked against us so much we can't, or it leads people to violence. I mean, this part of my problem with this Stephen Wolf book is he largely is advocating for revolution, like violent revolution, to get his way, and he dances around it enough he can give himself plausible deniability, but it's clearly there implied, and I'm not the only one to read it that way, and it's all kind of crazy talk with the veneer of legitimacy, and I'm kind of tired of people doing crazy talk with veneers of legitimacy. Yes, listen, I'm very open with you guys. Like I said yesterday, I really do think that part of the whole transgender thing is people who are Malthusians who believe we need population control and are worried about the earth more than they are. People have totally embraced gender dysphoria because why not convince boys to castrate themselves and girls to give themselves hysterectomies so that they don't reproduce and we can solve the population crisis by endorsing gender dysphoria. But I'm open up front with you that this is my conspiracy theory. A lot of other people just tell it to you as fact and don't even recognize it's kind of their fringe theory that they're saying out loud. And I actually do think I'm right on mine too. But I'll put it in proper context for you. The bottom line is that Sam Brinton is going to be charged with theft. He has lost his job. And if you have had loud voices in your ear telling you that, well, nothing's going to happen to this guy because he works for the Biden administration, just make a mental note of who those voices were on the right who said that. Sam Bankman-Fried has been charged by the Southern District of New York with a host of crimes. The SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, are also investigating him and have charges ready to go against him for securities issues. There were a lot of people who said that would have. Just make a mental note of who those voices were and maybe tread more cautiously in the future. I have a Yeti tumbler for my show, a big 16 ounce I fill up with coffee. And on the one side, it has the show logo, and on the other side, it says truth matters most. And it doesn't say your truth. It doesn't say my truth. It says the truth. I don't think we can fix problems if we can't commit to being honest and truthful. We can't combat the left with our truth. We can fight the left with the truth. And when we have people on the right who are misleading people and sending them down rabbit holes and into conspiracy thinking that the rest of the world can't relate to, we nominate a bunch of crap candidates who in a good year for the GOP lose because most people aren't willing to descend into the rabbit holes of crazy town with us. So commit yourself to the truth and to the voices that are telling you stuff that pan out not to be true. Just make a note for yourself in the future. And above all else, do not ever let me do your thinking for you. And do not let any other person do your thinking for you. In a convoluted, crazy, busy world, it's very easy to outsource thinking to other people. I don't ever want to think for you. I do want to tell you what the truth is and what's going on so you can think for yourself. But let's just stop letting celebrities think for us. That's what the left is supposed to do. And the more we do it, the more we go to crazy town. The more we go to crazy town, the more we put up crap candidates. And the more we put up crap candidates, the worse of a time we have beating the other side.